It got to like 34 and I was like, you know what? I'll just cover it real quick. There's no point in letting things get colder than they have to. And what this is gonna allow me to do is not only am I gonna grow through the winter, but I will also start earlier in the spring. I added a low tunnel in, and to my surprise, it was very cheap, very easy, and seems to function just as well as this guy back here, this greenhouse, but at a fraction of the cost. The only difference is it's not as easy to work in, but it's a great place to start if you're wanting to expand your garden harvest through the colder months and then getting a jump start in the spring. So this is my low tunnel. All you're gonna need for this project is some PVC pipe, rebar, and plastic, and then if you really want, you can get some PVC clips, but that's it, and then something to weight it down. So total, this thing cost me about 40 bucks to get going, and it took me, I'd say probably about 30 minutes to set it up. So I added this on top of a 4x8 bed, and I used four half-inch PVC pipes, and they are 8 feet long. So my bed is 4 feet wide, and I wanted to do double the length. So if your bed's 6 feet, you do 12 feet, so on and so forth. And the rebar, I did get a little bit small rebar on it, and it was, I want to say they're about 18 inches, maybe 24 inches. Can't really remember, but it was super, super cheap. And what we do is I have a piece of PVC in here. Trying to do this one-handed doesn't work well. But you can see we can lift it up in the daytime so it vents fairly easy. If it's going to be cold the next night, I'll leave it up there as long as it's not super windy. And I mean, everything in there is growing. I mean, check it out. The kale is not really hurt. Now, we haven't had super cold temperatures yet, so everything like over in this garden's good and back here, but we've had some stuff in the back over here start to kind of get a little damaged, and this has worked out super good. So let's talk about how we made it. As we took the PVC and we added this piece of rebar in, and I just took it when the bed was nice and moist from being watered and put it in so there's a little bit sticking out. And you take your PVC and you put in and you just bend it over. So now it has a natural bend. If you can see, it didn't have that before. It was obviously nice and straight, but I just bent it over and you slide it on. Take that PVC and I stick it into the ground a little bit more. And I mean, you know, you want to go about that more deep, just so it supports it, because at first what wanted to happen is it wanted to pop out, but now it's got, because of the heat of the day and everything, it's made that natural bend in it, and this is going to be really awesome. So what we did as well is we took, so usually people use 6mm plastic, and 6mm plastic is real thick. I used 3.5, number one because I couldn't find 6mm plastic, but also because it doesn't get as cold here. So I live in zone 8A in North Carolina, and we can get down into the 20s, and we will get down into the 20s, but that doesn't happen a lot. So we want to make sure that it doesn't get overheated during the day too. Like if for some reason I couldn't get out here quick enough, because a lot of times it'll be cold in the morning, and then just like that, that was a weak snap. Just like that, it'll go back up. So we want to make sure that if we miss it, that we can still get some heat to escape, because it will get hot in there fast. But it seems to be working well. These are PVC pipe clips, and they just snap on just like that. And so what happens is, as I put, like if I was going to get a period of cold weather, then I would take these PVC clips, I put the plastic on, and then I would clip it on here. I have them clipped on down here. So I have 1, 2, and then a third one right here. And so that'll keep that plastic nice and tight onto this frame. And then also, if I go over here, you can see that I put a PVC pipe in this side, and then I clipped it on here. And what that does is it allows me to grab with one hand and just drape it over. And just like that, even if I was in a hurry and it wasn't gonna get super cold, just like that, I could leave it. And it's fine because that PVC pipe's there, it will actually fill it up and drag it down. So what I'll probably end up doing, because it's open, is I'm gonna take some sand and put inside of this PVC pipe and then cap it on the end so it's a little bit more weight. And then it would just hold it down. But I'm not even convinced I need to do that. If I need to, I will. And then on the ends, I just take them, bunch them up, and then put a brick or something on them, and then that'll hold it nice and tight. And you've got basically a little mini cold frame. You know, that greenhouse there is unheated, so it is essentially the same thing as this. Probably thinking, well, how warm does it keep it? Well, as of right now, from what I can tell, it keeps it about 3 to 4 degrees warmer at night, which is a big deal. So if you're talking 25 degrees, easily 29 degrees. Now I can do something as well too, like in the daytime as it's getting cooler in the afternoon, but the sun's still hitting, I can take like a watering can and put in there, and it'll absorb that heat, and as it gets cooler at night, it'll actually release that heat back into it. So you can do that as well. And I've also read people put like Christmas lights in there, like the old school kind, not the LED ones, and turning them on at night, and that'll leave enough ambient temperature in there to kind of keep it a little bit warmer as well. Now you're not gonna grow tomatoes in here, let's be straight. That's not gonna happen, not in the winter time. But stuff like kale and kohlrabi and turnips and spinach and maybe even a lettuce, depending on how cold you get, collards, some broccolis maybe, radishes, all those things, they already do good and cold. So you're setting yourself up for success by planting those in here. Now if you were to go crazy and say, you know what, I want to plant a tomato out there, you're gonna fail, because it is gonna get way too cold. So just keep that in mind. But I mean, you just take the rebar, you stick it in. So I needed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces of rebar, 4 8-foot pipes, and I think I actually had to get them in 10 feet, so I cut them down. And what I'll do is, if I need it, so we don't get snow here, but if I needed a brace on top of this, what I can do is take those 2-foot sections and then get connectors and then zip tie them on here to make a brace. And so that'll just give it a little bit more, in case I had some weight sitting on it. But I don't get any kind of snow or anything really here, and if I do, I got bigger problems than that. And it keeps it nice and warm, it keeps it protected. You really need to stay on top of watering, especially if you leave it covered during the day. Like if you're gonna have cool, like if during the day it's gonna stay below freezing maybe, you need to make sure that you vent it, because it will get hot in there. And 2, if it's gonna rain or something and you wanna get it watered, you're gonna either have to take the top off or you're gonna have to actively water it yourself. So that is kind of a downfall. So the cool part is, if you remember, I've said in the past that everything in my garden is dual purpose. So 1, because it's so easy to set up, I can take that rebar and move it to any one of these beds at any time. But in the summertime, I can put a piece of tulle fabric over it and cover my beds easier that way. So there's always another purpose for this. So you'll see this now through the winter, and then in the spring, I imagine if you come back by, which I hope you do, you will see that I have used the fabric to cover stuff, maybe to stop my squash vine borers, for instance, from getting my squash and improving my harvest. So it's got dual purpose. And by leaving that pipe on at the end and just laying it on the ground, it's available for me to quickly grab it at any time I need it and to cover it quickly. You know, if we're gonna get a flash freeze or something like that, if we're just gonna dip below. I think last night it got to like 34 and I was like, you know what, I'll just cover it real quick. There's no point in letting things get colder than they have to.